welcome to Toronto Talks, the podcast that brings you the most important stories about money, business, and technology.
Whether you're an entrepreneur, a tech enthusiast, or just looking to stay ahead of the curve, we dive deep into the latest in finance, innovation, and industry.
Hosted by Ashraf Amin and Sophie the Sage.
We blend human expertise with cutting-edge technology to explore the dynamic world of modern industry
with fearless curiosity and wit.
Let's get started.
Over the past couple of years, it's felt like artificial intelligence has gone from something experimental to something that's suddenly everywhere. Every company is talking about it. Every platform is integrating it. Even workflow seems to have versions of AI layered into it. But at the same time, there's this strange disconnect. If you ask most people what AI actually is doing inside their organizations, where is it creating value? How is it changing outcomes? The answers are often vague, or inconsistent, or still evolving. So, on one hand, we have rapid adoption. On the other, we have a kind of uncertainty about what that adoption actually means. And that raises a bigger question. Has AI truly become economically real, or are we still somewhere in between experimentation and impact?
I think the confusion comes from how we've been measuring progress. For a long time, the story of AI was framed around intelligence itself. How good the models are, how fast they're improving, what they're capable of generating. And those things matter, but they don't actually determine whether AI is real in an economic sense. Because intelligence on its own doesn't create value. Value is created when intelligence is embedded into work, when it becomes part of a process, when something depends on it. And that's the shift we're starting to see now, not just better outputs, but deeper integration. Across industries, adoption has accelerated quickly. A large majority of organizations are now using AI in some capacity, and generative AI has moved into real business functions, customer support, development workflows, marketing systems. At the same time, we're seeing something else emerge. Revenue, not theoretical value, not experimental pilots, actual dollars. Companies like Microsoft are reporting AI-related revenue in the tens of billions on a run rate basis. Enterprise platforms are not just adding AI, they're monetizing it, packaging it, and attaching it directly to workflows that businesses already depend on. That's an important signal. It suggests that AI is no longer just being used, it's being paid for. And that's usually the moment when a technology crosses from possibility into reality. But even then, the picture isn't clean, because widespread use doesn't automatically translate into meaningful impact. And that's where the tension starts to show.
So we're in this interesting position where AI is clearly being adopted and in some cases clearly being monetized, but it still doesn't feel fully settled. It doesn't feel like a solved layer of the economy yet.
Adoption can happen much faster than integration. It's relatively easy to introduce a tool. It's much harder to restructure a system around it. And most organizations are still somewhere in that gap. They're using AI, but they haven't rebuilt their workflows to fully take advantage of it. They're experimenting, but they're not always measuring outcomes in a consistent way. They're generating outputs, but not always capturing value. So you end up with this dual reality. On the surface, AI feels ubiquitous. Underneath, its impact is uneven. And that's why the experience feels so inconsistent. Because we're not looking at a single phase of adoption. We're looking at multiple phases happening at the same time. Some companies are still exploring, some are integrating, and a smaller group is already operating in a way where AI is quietly becoming part of the infrastructure of how work gets done. That's the group to pay attention to. because that's where the signal is clearest.
So maybe the better way to frame this isn't just asking whether AI is being used. It's asking something more specific. Where is AI actually working? And more importantly, what do those environments have in common?
AI doesn't work everywhere equally. It clusters. It tends to show up in environments where the work is structured in a certain way, where tasks are repeatable, where language or pattern recognition plays a central role, where speed matters, and where outcomes can be measured. In those environments, even small improvements compound quickly. Reducing response time by a few minutes can mean capturing demand that would have otherwise been lost. Improving the quality or consistency of an output can reduce downstream errors across an entire workflow. And those effects are subtle at first, but they accumulate. And over time, they begin to reshape how the system operates. That's when AI stops being a feature and starts becoming something closer to infrastructure.
It seems the real shift isn't just that AI got better, it's that work has started to depend on it.
Exactly. AI didn't become economically real when it became more intelligent. It became real when the cost of not using it started to show up inside the system. And once that happens, the conversation changes. Because now the question is no longer, what can AI do? It becomes, where does it actually create value and why?
So if AI has moved into real workflows, the next question becomes, where is that actually happening? Because it doesn't seem evenly distributed. Some teams feel like they're moving quickly while others feel stuck, and in a lot of cases that difference isn't entirely clear.
It's not random. AI doesn't spread evenly across an organization. It concentrates in very specific types of work. And if you look closely, those environments tend to share a few characteristics. The work is repeatable. It often involves language or pattern recognition. There's time sensitivity. And most importantly, the outcome can be measured. Customer support is a clear example. There's a defined input, a question or request, a defined output, a response or resolution, and a measurable cost to delay. If a response takes too long, the opportunity is lost. So even a small improvement in response time can translate directly into economic value. You see a similar pattern in software development. Developers aren't just generating code, they're accelerating workflows, debugging, documentation, iteration. The value isn't in the intelligence itself, it's in how that intelligence fits into a system where time, output, and quality are already being tracked. Marketing and content workflows follow the same pattern. AI increases throughput, reduces cycle times, improves consistency across outputs, not because the models are perfect, but because the environment makes those outputs usable. So what we're really seeing isn't broad adoption, it's selective compatibility. AI works best where the system is already structured in a way that can absorb it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What you're describing doesn't sound like AI just entering a business. It almost sounds like it's being pulled into certain parts of it. Like, those environments are already set up to receive it, and the common thread there seems pretty specific. Clear inputs, clear outputs, tight feedback loops. So, beyond how advanced the AI actually is, the environment itself needs to be structured in a way that can effectively make use of it.
That's right. AI doesn't create structure. It relies on it.
All right, Sophie. So if we zoom in on what's actually happening inside organizations, where are you most consistently seeing AI show up in a meaningful way?
The pattern becomes very clear once you start looking for it. AI shows up first in environments where the work already has a defined shape, not necessarily simple work, but structured work. Customer support is one of the clearest examples. There's a defined input, a defined output, and a real cost to delay. So when AI reduces response time even slightly, It doesn't just improve efficiency, it captures value that would have otherwise been lost. That's an important distinction, because in many of these environments, value isn't created by improving the system in theory, it's created by reducing friction in something that's already happening. You see the same pattern in development. AI isn't replacing thinking, it's accelerating specific parts of the workflow, writing boilerplate, debugging, navigating complexity. So again, the value is concrete. It shows up in time saved, output increased, iteration speed improved. And in marketing or content workflows, the structure shifts slightly, but the pattern holds. AI increases throughput, reduces cycle time, standardizes output. But all of that only works because the system already has repeatability. So across all of these environments, the common thread isn't intelligence. It's compatibility with how the work is organized.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's almost like AI is plugging into something that's already in motion, not creating something entirely new. So, what is it about those environments specifically? What do they actually have in common underneath all that?
They operate within tight feedback loops, and that's critical. In customer support, you know almost immediately whether something worked. Was the issue resolved? Did the customer stay? Did they leave? In development, feedback comes through testing and iteration. In marketing, it's noisier, but still measurable through engagement and conversion. So in all of these environments, you're not just producing outputs, you're able to evaluate them. And that's what allows AI to improve within the system over time. There's another layer as well. These are environments where much of the work is mediated through language or patterns, which makes them naturally compatible with how current AI systems operate. So when you combine structured workflows, measurable outcomes, and pattern-based tasks, you get an environment where even imperfect outputs can still create value. And that's the key. AI doesn't have to be perfect to be useful. It just has to be good enough within a system that knows how to use it.
Right, so it's not just that the work is structured, it's that the system can actually respond to what's happening, which kind of shifts the framing, right? Is this really about how intelligent the AI is, or is it more about how compatible the workflow is?
At this stage, it's overwhelmingly about compatibility. We tend to focus on how much the models have improved, and they have. But the difference between something that works and something that doesn't usually has less to do with the model and more to do with the environment it's placed into. If you take a highly capable system and drop it into an unstructured workflow, the results will feel inconsistent. Not because the system isn't intelligent, but because there's no stable way to evaluate or integrate its outputs. Whereas in a structured environment, even a moderately capable system can create significant value, because the system provides context, constraints, and feedback. So AI doesn't behave like a universal layer. It behaves more like a component that requires the right conditions to function.
Yeah, that does shift it a bit. The way it's usually framed, it sounds like AI should just scale across everything once it's good enough. But what you're describing feels a lot more uneven. Like, some parts of the business move quickly and others just don't, even if the tech is there. So maybe it's not just about how far the AI can go, it's also about how ready the system is for it. Do you think companies are overstating how broadly this can actually be applied right now?
I do. But it is understandable. When a technology improves this quickly, there's a natural assumption that its applicability should expand at the same rate. But capability and applicability don't scale the same way. Capability can grow exponentially. Applicability expands much more slowly because it depends on real-world systems. And those systems are messy. They're not always well-defined. They involve edge cases, exceptions, human judgment. So when companies try to apply AI broadly without accounting for that, they run into friction. The results feel inconsistent. The ROI is unclear, and the technology starts to feel less reliable than expected. But the issue isn't that AI is overhyped. It's that its range of effective application is narrower than people assume, at least for now. And that range is defined far more by system design than by model capability.
Right, that makes sense. If the fit isn't there, if the workflows aren't structured in that way, it's probably going to feel a lot rougher in practice. I can imagine teams trying to plug it in anyway and just running into friction at every step. So what actually tends to happen when companies push into those kinds of environments?
That's where most of the disappointment comes from. Because what happens is a mismatch between expectation and reality. Companies expect AI to compensate for the lack of structure, but AI doesn't create structure, it exposes it. So instead of improving the system, it reveals the weaknesses in it. You see inconsistent outputs, edge cases that break workflows, results that are difficult to integrate. And from the outside, it can look like the AI isn't working. But what's actually happening is that the system around it isn't designed to support it. In some cases, this leads to abandonment. Teams try the tool, don't see immediate value, and move on. In other cases, it leads to partial adoption, where AI is used in isolated pockets, but never fully integrated. And that's where the broader perception comes from. AI feels both everywhere and underwhelming, because the success cases are real, but they're conditional.
Yeah, that really ties it all together. And the question shifts a bit. It's less about scanning for use cases and more about looking at the underlying setup, where things are already structured in a way that can support it. So instead of just asking, where can we use AI, it sort of becomes, where is the system actually ready for it, right?
Precisely. And once you start asking that question, you stop looking for universal applications and start identifying environments where the conditions are already aligned. That's where the real progress is happening. Quietly, narrowly, but meaningfully.
So if AI isn't spreading evenly and it's showing up in these specific pockets, that suggests something important. This isn't a general purpose layer that works everywhere.
No, it isn't. And that's one of the most important things to understand right now. A lot of the narrative assumes that once the technology is good enough, it should work across almost any context. But that's not how it behaves. It behaves more like a system that requires the right conditions. And when those conditions are present, structured workflows, measurable outputs, time sensitivity, it can create very real value. But outside of those environments, the results become far less consistent. And that's where the confusion comes from. Companies see what's working in one area and assume it should work everywhere else. So they expand too quickly without changing the underlying system. And when that happens, the results feel underwhelming. Not because the AI isn't capable, but because the environment isn't compatible.
So what it really comes down to is the shape of the system itself, the places where the structure is already there to support it and where AI can actually function without friction.
And once you start looking at it that way, the landscape becomes much clearer.
This episode of Toronto Talks is brought to you by Conquest Distributors, your trusted source for shipping, packaging, and warehouse supplies. For nearly 20 years, they've helped Canadian businesses thrive with fast, reliable service and a commitment to integrity and efficiency. Getting the products you need when you need them has never been easier. Now, let's talk about something real. With the latest round of tariffs coming from south of the border, supporting Canadian manufacturers and supply vendors isn't just good for business, it's good for Canada. So why keep funneling money to US giants like Uline when you can get the same or better quality products right here at home? When you choose Conquest Distributors, you're not just getting top-tier packaging, shipping, and warehouse essentials at competitive prices. You're investing in local businesses, strengthening Canadian supply chains, and keeping economic power here at home where it belongs. With fast, reliable fulfillment, an easy-to-use online store, and a team that genuinely cares about your success, Conquest Distributors proves that Canadian businesses can compete and win on quality and in service. And now, to make it even easier, Toronto Talks listeners get to enjoy 15% off their first online order with promo code TALK15. Head on over to conquestdistributors.ca and see for yourself. That's conquestdistributors.ca, your trusted business supply partners. Now, back to the show. We've spent some time diving into exactly where AI is being used, but usage alone doesn't tell us much. People can use tools without creating any value, so the next question is, where is AI actually making money?
That's the right question. Revenue is one of the clearest signals we have. It tells us not just where AI is working, but where it's valuable enough for someone to pay for it. And right now that signal is concentrated in one place: enterprise software. Companies like Microsoft, Salesforce, ServiceNow, they're not just experimenting with AI, they're embedding it into products businesses already depend on. And then they're pricing it not as a standalone feature, but as part of the workflow. That's the key, because it means AI isn't being sold as intelligence, it's being sold as outcome. Faster responses, better automation, higher productivity. And those outcomes are tied to systems that already have distribution, integration, and demand. So instead of asking customers to adopt something new, they're enhancing something that's already essential. That's why monetization is happening there first. Not because the models are better, but because the path to value is shorter.
It sounds like the advantage shows up in how it's delivered, not just how advanced it is. If it can slot directly into something people are already doing, the value shows up a lot faster. So it's less about who has the most advanced AI and more about who can actually make it useful inside real work.
Intelligence doesn't monetize itself. It has to be delivered through a system people already rely on.
All right, Sophie, let's move the discussion from usage into actual economics. Can you provide some insight into where AI is really generating meaningful revenue right now?
The clearest signal is still enterprise software, and that's not accidental. These companies have something most AI native products don't. They already sit inside critical workflows. So when Microsoft integrates AI into Office, or Salesforce integrates it into CRM, they're not asking customers to change behavior, they're enhancing behavior that already exists. And that dramatically shortens the path to monetization, because the value doesn't have to be explained. It's experienced directly inside the work. You write an email faster, summarize a meeting instantly, generate a report without starting from zero. Individually, those are small improvements, but at scale, across an organization, they become economically meaningful, and more importantly, they're measurable. So instead of selling AI, these companies are pricing productivity.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's almost like the value is being embedded into things people are already paying for. So why are enterprise platforms so far ahead here?
They control three things that matter more than the model: distribution, integration, and trust. Distribution means they already have the user. They don't need to acquire attention. Integration means they're already embedded in how work happens. The AI isn't separate, it's part of the process. And trust is critical. Businesses are far more willing to adopt new capabilities from vendors they already depend on. Now compare that to a standalone AI product. Even if it's technically superior, it has to earn distribution, force integration, and build trust from zero. That's a much harder path to monetization. So what we're seeing isn't just a technology advantage, it's a positioning advantage.
Right. And that creates a bit of a gap into what's technically possible and what actually translates into value. You can have something that's objectively better, but if it doesn't fit into an existing workflow, it just kind of sits there. Whereas something slightly less advanced but already embedded starts generating value almost immediately. So when we talk about AI revenue, what does that actually look like in practice?
It shows up in a few consistent ways. The most common is seat-based pricing. Companies charge an additional fee per user for AI-enhanced functionality. Sometimes it's bundled, sometimes it's a premium tier. But either way, it's tied to usage within an existing system. You also see consumption-based models charging based on queries, outputs, or API usage. And then workflow-based pricing, where AI is tied to a specific function like support automation and priced based on outcomes. Cost per resolution, cost per interaction, cost savings versus labor. But across all of these models, the pattern is consistent. Revenue isn't tied to intelligence in the abstract. It's tied to something measurable. Time saved, output increased, cost reduced. So AI revenue doesn't look like people buying intelligence. It looks like people paying for improved performance inside systems they already use.
Right. So what's really showing up there is the impact on the workflow itself. How much faster it moves, how much smoother it becomes. That seems to be what's actually getting valued. Which begs the question, are companies really buying AI, or are they just paying for the outcomes it produces?
They're buying outcomes, and in most cases, they don't even think of it as buying AI. They think of it as improving the tools they already use. That distinction matters, because it means AI is becoming invisible in the transaction. It's not the product, it's the mechanism that improves the product. And historically, that's where durable monetization happens, when the technology disappears into the experience. Electricity is a useful analogy. Companies don't pay for electricity as a concept, they pay for what it enables. AI is starting to behave the same way. The more invisible it becomes, the more economically powerful it tends to be.
Yeah, that's a big shift. It almost removes AI from the spotlight entirely. So, in this particular phase, how important is distribution compared to the technology itself?
Right now, distribution is often more important than the technology. Not because the technology doesn't matter, but because access determines monetization. You can have a highly advanced system, but if it's not embedded in a workflow, or if users have to go out of their way to use it, adoption will be limited. And limited adoption means limited revenue, whereas a slightly less advanced system, embedded in a widely used product, can generate significant revenue simply by being present at the point of work. So we're seeing an inversion. The technical frontier is advancing rapidly, but the economic value is being captured by those who control the interface with the user.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It sort of moves the advantage away from just building the capability towards being positioned right where the work is actually happening. If you're already sitting at that point of interaction, where decisions are made, where tasks get executed, then even incremental improvements start to compound pretty quickly. Like, it's less about who's pushing the frontier forward and more about who's actually capturing where value gets created. What does it look like when AI actually crosses the chasm into economic reality?
There are a few signals: willingness to pay at scale, not pilots, recurring spend, budget reallocation. When companies shift spend away from other tools or labor toward AI-enabled systems. Workflow dependency, when teams rely on it as part of normal operations. And pricing power, when companies can charge a premium and the market accepts it. Those are strong indicators. But even then, we're still early, because monetization doesn't mean the system is optimized. It just means the value is clear enough to price.
Yeah, that's a really important distinction. So you can have real revenue without the system being fully figured out. And that's where things start to get interesting. Because even with adoption and monetization, the results still don't feel consistent, right?
They don't. And that inconsistency is the next layer of the story. AI can generate value. It can be embedded. It can be monetized. But that doesn't guarantee consistent performance. There's still a gap between capability and outcomes, and that's where the tension starts to build.
If the strongest signal is coming from enterprise software, that suggests something deeper about how this market is developing.
It shows that value doesn't come from intelligence alone. It comes from integration. The companies monetizing AI most effectively aren't necessarily building the models. They're embedding those capabilities into systems that already run the business. And that changes everything. Because now AI isn't something you adopt. It's something that gets added to tools you already use. And once that happens, the barrier drops. Adoption accelerates, usage increases, and over time, dependency forms. But even then, monetization isn't the end state. It's just the first clear signal that value exists.
So revenue tells us something important, but it doesn't tell us everything.
Absolutely. You can have monetization without full transformation. You can have products generating revenue while the underlying workflows are still evolving. And that's where the next layer of tension comes in. Because even though AI is being used and even though it's being paid for, a lot of organizations still aren't seeing consistent results.
And that's the gap.
This is where the story stops feeling linear. Up to this point, the signals look strong. AI is being adopted. It's showing up inside real workflows. In some cases, it's even being monetized. So from the outside, you'd expect the results to be clear, but they're not. Most organizations are seeing something much less consistent. Some use cases work extremely well, others feel underwhelming. And across the system as a whole, the outcomes are uneven. That ambiguity can make it feel like a problem with the technology. But when you look more closely, the pattern is more structural. The difference isn't the capability of the AI, it's the environment it's operating inside. Most organizations haven't failed to adopt AI, they've failed to reorganize around it. Right now, we're in a phase of partial integration. AI has been introduced into workflows, but those workflows haven't been fundamentally redesigned. So certain steps get faster, certain tasks get automated. But the overall flow, how work moves from input to outcome, largely stays the same. And that's where the friction shows up. When one part of a system accelerates but the rest doesn't adapt, the gains don't compound, they stall. Outputs still need to be interpreted, validated, and passed downstream. And if those downstream steps haven't changed, the system absorbs the improvement without amplifying it. So the value becomes fragmented, visible in moments, but not reliable across the whole. From the outside, that fragmentation looks like inconsistency, but internally, the pattern is usually stable. AI performs well where conditions are aligned, clear inputs, measurable outputs, tight feedback loops, and it struggles where those conditions don't exist. So what we're really seeing isn't inconsistency in the technology, it's inconsistency in the environments it's being placed into. And that's why this phase is so difficult to interpret, because both narratives can appear true at the same time. AI is working, and it's under-delivering. The reality sits in between. The technology is advancing faster than most organizations can adapt around it. And until that gap closes, the results will continue to feel uneven, not because AI lacks capability, but because the systems around it haven't caught up.
So, to ground this in something real, we wanted to bring in a team that's actually building and deploying this technology in production. Limitless AI works directly on client conversations, calls, follow-ups, lead qualification, and uses those interactions to improve how teams respond over time. The system analyzes what's happening, identifies what works, and feeds that back into the workflow. Joining us today are Nick Bruce and Matthew Dillon from Limitless AI. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Amazing. Thank you for having us.
Pleasure to have you on the show, guys. So let's get started right here. Can you walk us through a specific workflow your system is responsible for today and exactly where AI sits inside that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So our workflow that we built with AI is focused on response. So we built a workflow that lives on the front end, the customer-facing side of the business, and its main purpose is to improve response time. So this really means when a customer, an inbound lead, is approaching you, how quickly are we responding to them? And we'll get into the details of that later, but it actually is pretty detrimental to actually converting your leads into clients.
Fantastic. Awesome. So one of the things that Sophie had highlighted is response time and compression as a driver of value. How does that show up in your system, and why does speed matter so much in your context?
Yeah, absolutely. So speed is so important because, and I'll walk you through the customer journey here. This is a journey that I find I experience a lot, and then Nick will kind of jump into the stats and the ROI and the details of it. But basically, picture this. I'm looking to get some sort of trade service done for my home, and I am interested in booking a quote. I'm trying to get a good price because obviously there's a lot of local companies and I want to make sure I get a fair rate for good work. So I put in a submission after I finish work at around 5 p.m., right? I fill out a quote online or I call, and turns out they've wrapped up for the day at 5 p.m. I filled out the quote online and nobody's there on the weekend. And so I wait until Monday to potentially hear back. Now, this company that I wanted to get a quote from, they spent all weekend capturing and collecting all of these leads, but then Monday comes and they have a whole list of people they need to follow up with, as well as a bunch of work to catch up on to start the week. And so I typically won't hear back until Tuesday or Wednesday. And by then, as a consumer looking for a product and service, one, I've lost interest, and two, maybe I've reached out to a competitor who has a quicker response time, who's actually going to come out and give me that quote right away. And so it's not always about being the best on the market, but being the most available and ready on the market. And you'll see that with trade businesses. You'll see it when you go to get a haircut. If you call into the barber and they don't pick up the phone and it takes 2 to 3 minutes and it's just ringing because they're busy cutting hair, you're less likely to call back and try to book that appointment. Like there's these friction points in response time that typical teams struggle to improve on, and that's detrimental to the consumer behavior and how people are actually purchasing and buying with which companies.
No, that makes perfect sense. And so when you think about ROI specifically, what makes it so measurable in your case? Like, what are you actually tracking that tells you the system is working?
Absolutely. So the main things that we're tracking right now is response time. And so when someone comes into the funnel, when someone fills out a lead magnet per se, or wants to get a quote, what is the actual duration of time that they need to wait before they actually speak to a human or speak to someone, or at least get the answer to their questions? And so the main thing that we're tracking is that response time. And turns out in business, response time matters heavily. It's super important responding to your leads as fast as possible. And so when you respond faster, you get more leads. There's actually a study on this. Turns out there was a study comparing the average response time of a business and what happens when you respond within the minute of when they hit the submit button. So for an average business owner, whenever you fill out a quote request or a form, or you're trying to speak with someone, it takes an average of 42 hours to actually hear a response back. And now that's baseline. Now, when you respond to these leads within 1 minute, turns out that boosts sales rate and close rate by a dramatic number. Like, it's absolutely insane, the close rate that it goes to. And so if baseline was 42 hours, 41 hours, if you respond within 1 minute of the lead coming in, your closing rate goes up by 391%.
Wow.
391%.
That's remarkable. Yeah.
And
that's
so
insane.
Absolutely. It's game changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to jump in there too. So like, just to give you the points is, we're capturing response time, after hours coverage, lead capture, qualification completion rate, booking rates, follow-up completions, and even handoff success. And we'll jump into that, but handoff success is a really, really important feature when implementing AI workflows, because AI is not replacing the business. It's one component in the workflow, and how we hand off to the team to actually go and follow up with that lead is also very important.
Well, it's great that you pivoted to that specific part of the discussion, because it sounds like a big part of how this works is how tightly scoped the problem is, right? Was that intentional for you from the beginning, or is it something that you've sort of arrived at through iteration and your experience?
Iteration and experience. When we started integrating these technologies, they were more like FAQ AI chatbots, right? And building successful workflows is challenging. And this is where a lot of the other AI companies fail, is they don't define the workflows. They don't define what the process is for the AI agent to complete a successful transaction. And that's where it falls apart. So you have to clearly outline every process and every step in this workflow. And then from there, you can track the success rates of each step in that flow.
Fascinating.
So it's not a magic tool. It's a designed system that guides the user through it. And when you have a design system, you can track it a lot better as well. So what stages are we falling apart on?
Right. And I think, just like you sort of alluded to, in this circumstance, it's one of those situations where it's just as important to identify what you're not trying to solve as opposed to what you are trying to solve, and really narrowing and defining that scope. So let me ask you this, gentlemen. How do you think about captured demand here? Like, when response time improves, where does that value actually end up showing up?
Yeah, absolutely. So the value where that shows up is going to be in the hands of the sales team, right? Ideally. So if you have a sales team or a receptionist, the immediate capture, it kind of goes into two phases. That return is for the sales team, who then benefits from having warm leads with, basically we call it like touch points. So we've already created the touch point with the client. We've created that commitment. And now when that sales team or receptionist or anyone follows up, they have that immediate touch point. It also creates like a warmer kind of intro into the conversation to follow through. The next point is also consumer experience, right? So your digital experience, in a sense, really affects how people want to operate and work with you, right? So if you have a really seamless consumer experience and they can get a response right away and they can know that you're taking care of them, this creates an elevated experience, and the customer kind of perceives that company as precise and on point, and it builds that kind of trust of, okay, if I hire these guys, I pay them my money, they are going to be on top of it and they are going to get things done. So
yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, absolutely. And so, zooming out, do you guys think AI is fundamentally constrained to these tightly defined sort of measurable systems today, or are you already seeing it sort of extend beyond them in a reliable way?
That's a tough one. Our perspectives change day to day, and I'll tell you why.
Okay. All right.
As of right now, they are constrained to how you design them. An AI model only works as well as you train it, as well as you configure it, and the tools and processes you give it. As of to this date. Now, everyone might know the term AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. The future of AI implementation could mean you get a general system that doesn't need a defined process because it's basically intuitive enough to operate across the entire system effectively. We're not there today.
Right.
And the problem
Despite what people like Jensen Wang will say on the All In podcast, right?
Exactly. Yeah. No, we are not there today. And I'll tell you, especially in Canada, we are the slowest innovators to technology, especially in business. And you'll notice
that is a fact.
Right? We took forever to even integrate Microsoft and Excel into a lot of companies. Some of our clients to date are still just using pen and paper to write down their leads. Going in and automating, first you got to set them up with a proper system and process. Then you can have once they have a process, you build a workflow to automate that process. Then you're actually moving somewhere. But I don't think AGI is going to be coming into your local, service-based businesses and, small to medium businesses and at least the GTA. I don't think we're going to have any AGI coming in and automating the entire business because
not anytime soon, at least, right?
Yeah. And people aren't going to trust AI to do that for their business. I don't think it's going to be.
Absolutely.
I think refining AI as specific tools for specific use cases is the best way to implement it.
That's a perfect wrap-up statement right there, Matthew. I think we'll call it complete on that. Thanks again, gentlemen, for your time. We appreciate you coming on the show, and can't wait to explore these ideas further.
Sounds good. Thank you for having us.
Here are the top 6 reasons why smart Toronto businesses choose Conquest over Uline. We were going to do a top 5 list, but truth is, doing a little extra is kind of our thing. Number 6, we offer free shipping. Uline doesn't. I mean, it doesn't really get any simpler than that, does it? Number 5, we've got 35 5-star Google reviews from real customers.
Sorry. It's 62 now.
This is why you don't patch ads. You just shoot a new one.
Yeah, but then you miss the part where the number keeps going up.
Accuracy matters, especially when it's public.
We're interrupting success. To be precise?
Fix it while it's working.
That's literally a Toronto Talks episode.
Everything here is.
This city's full of people who notice details and pay for them.
Okay, well, that is our customer.
Exactly.
They've got Yelp, Trustpilot, and Glassdoor reviews that read like corporate horror fiction. Number 4, we're actually in the GTA. Uline, they're out in Milton, aka delivery purgatory. We ship like your time matters because it does. Number 3, we are proudly all Canadian. Our customers, suppliers, even our platform, Uline, they're one of America's biggest employers, stars and stripes to the core. Number 2, our carbon footprint is essentially non-existent. Remote operations, no warehouses, and definitely no junk mail catalogs from the Jurassic period. And reason number 1, Uline infamously offer their free hats and barbecue sauce. We, on the other hand, offer real savings, fast service, and actual value. If we step back and look at everything that we've covered, AI is clearly being adopted. It's showing up in real workflows, it's generating real revenue in certain environments. But at the same time, a lot of organizations are still struggling to translate that into consistent, measurable value. So where does that leave us? Are we early? Are we mid-transition? Or is this already the new normal?
I think we're right at the threshold. And thresholds are always uncomfortable because they don't look like clean transitions. They look like overlap. Old systems still operating, new systems partially integrated, signals that point in different directions. And that's exactly what we're seeing. On one side, you have high adoption rates. On the other, you have incomplete deployment. You have companies generating meaningful revenue from AI and others still trying to figure out how to measure ROI at all. That tension isn't a contradiction. It's a sign that the system is shifting. Technologies don't become economically real all at once. They become real when they cross a very specific line, not when people start using them, but when work starts depending on them.
And that feels like a subtle distinction, but it's actually a big one.
It is. Usage can be optional. Dependency is not. When a tool is optional, it can be ignored. It can be replaced. It can be experimented with. But when a work depends on something, when outcomes, timing, or revenue are tied to it, it becomes part of the system. And once that happens, the nature of adoption changes. It's no longer driven by curiosity, it's driven by necessity. That's when technologies stop behaving like features and start behaving like infrastructure.
We're actually starting to see that in specific places. Not everywhere, but in certain pockets where the economics are already clear.
Exactly. And that's an important point, because one of the biggest mistakes right now is assuming that AI needs to work everywhere in order to be considered successful. It doesn't. It only needs to work in enough places and in ways that are economically meaningful for the system to start reorganizing around it. And that's already happening quietly in specific workflows, in specific industries, in environments where the conditions are right, where speed matters, where responsiveness matters, where small improvements can translate directly into captured value. In those environments, AI isn't a future concept. It's already part of the operating model.
The signal isn't in how broadly AI is being talked about. It's in where it's actually being relied on.
That's where the transition is real. And once you start looking at it that way, the landscape becomes clearer. You stop asking, is AI overhyped or underhyped? And you start asking, where has it already crossed the line into necessity? That's the question that matters, because once that line is crossed, it's very difficult to go back.
Which sets up the next part of the conversation really well. Because if AI is starting to become something that work depends on, then the next question is, what actually limits that?
Exactly. Once something becomes real, it runs into reality. And for AI, that reality isn't just about software, it's about infrastructure. It's about compute, it's about energy, it's about the systems that actually support this layer at scale. And those systems don't behave the same way software does. They don't scale instantly, they don't expand without friction, they introduce constraints. And those constraints are going to shape what happens next.
So, in the next episode, we'll step down one layer, away from workflows and into what actually powers all of this.
If intelligence is becoming abundant, then the question is no longer how smart these systems can get. It's how far they can actually scale. And that's where the story starts to change.
That's it for the show. Like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and reach out to us anytime at talk@torontotalks.ca. We'll see you next time right here on Toronto Talks, where big ideas come to life.
And curiosity never sleeps.